The Bible timeline. This study we're going to present is over the Bible, Spirit Prophecy, and the Rod, and we're going to investigate closely what the timeline is that we can clearly see is soon to happen. Of course, this is a very, very complicated subject, but what we've done in part one, and we hopefully will have part two, maybe even part three, is to kind of consolidate the events so that we can see a clear outline of what happens back to back to back so we can know what to expect. We have prayed. We ask that you do the same. Claim the promise of John 16:13, and he will be faithful and guide you into all truth. So let us begin now. Okay, so we know the quote from the Spirit Prophecy that says the final events will be rapid ones. And if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, you especially need to pay close attention to the following timeline. If you're not an SDA, you should pay close attention as well, for these things will soon affect you after they affect the SDA church. And of course, in 1 Peter 4:17, we read the well-known, "For the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begin at us, what shall be the end of them that obey not the gospel of God?" So the Bible, the Spirit Prophecy, and the Lord's Rod, Micah 6:9, is very, very clear that judgment for the living will soon begin in the house of God. And we know that studying the Bible and the Spirit Prophecy, we can come to the clear conclusion that the Lord has guided us as Seventh-day Adventists to know that we are the house of God today. We're the ones that keep the commandments, proclaim the commandments, and of course, if we've followed more in line with the truth, we've come to understand that He sent us an Elijah the prophet, and that we understand that message as well. So the very first thing or event that we need to concentrate and be ready for is that gigantic war over the Middle East. So all of the things that we see happening in the world right now, we need to remember that that is the beginning event that begins the final stages or events to culminate in the Lord's second coming. And, of course, we know that from Zephaniah 2, verse 1 to 3. And you can read that at your leisure. Pause the video and read that one. But we as Present Truth believers know that that particular prophecy was fulfilled in 1948. And then, of course, we have Zechariah 14, verse 1 to 4. And that one has not yet been fulfilled. Of course, that one describes the great war over the Middle East and centered in Jerusalem. So we know that this is the area that the great war will be focused on, is the Middle East, particularly Israel. Okay, so while that happens, the second big event will happen, and that is the Seventh-day Church purification. And of course, we know that in Spirit of Prophecy, Manuscript Releases, Volume 1, page 260, she says to study the 9th chapter of Ezekiel. And of course, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, you know very well that the main leadership of our church never tells you to study the 9th chapter of Ezekiel. You have to do that on your own, or you have to be reminded of that by Present Truth believers, such as yours truly and other Davidian Seventh-day Adventists that are speaking the present truth to us today. And that's how, the only reason, the only way right now that we will know the truth is to be guided by the people that are proclaiming the present truth. And so Manuscript Releases, Volume 1, page 260, is a great one to know. And of course, that red highlighted there is strictly showing that she's talking to the Seventh-day Adventists, because she says, not a great while longer will the Lord bear with the people who have had such great and important truths revealed to them. So that's speaking to us, Seventh-day Adventists. And he's not going to bear much longer. And so she warns us, are you ready to listen to his message? Are you going to be converted before the time is up? And now we can take that reference, and then we can come down to the present truth, which is the Elijah message, and we see that the Lord instructs us that while the powers of the earth are engulfed in a gigantic war, the wicked in the church shall be cut off, no more to pass through her. So we see very clearly that it is not at the beginning of this war, or nor is it at the end of the war, but while the war is happening, that Ezekiel 9 church purification comes. So once we understand that this world-shaking event will happen, the church purification, Ezekiel 9, never been seen throughout the history of the world that the Lord's angels goes through a specific church and do a solemn church purification right there among the living people. And so this will be proclaimed, it'll be seen, it'll be front page news across the whole world, and be a big bewilderment among the world. And of course that, coupled with the gigantic war where Israel is involved in a tremendous war, we can imagine the earth-shaking events that will cause the world to be shaken up as never was before. So once this world happens, the world changes. And so this is very key to knowing these first two events shake the world up and cause the world to change, never again to be the same. So let's go over now a very blessed chart that we have in the Elijah message that's going to give us some really good clarity. And if you're not aware of it, this is the harvest period and close of probation chart, compiled by who we believe was the Elijah sent to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Victor T. Houteff. And if you don't have it, I would highly suggest that you contact a Present Truth believer, because these charts are freely available to any and all who want to receive one. And we're going to briefly go over that because it's a general overview of the timeline. And of course, we see that up here at the very beginning, 1929, as we know, the message came to our church. Brother Houteff began the message with the Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1. And of course, that was compiled in 1930, but he began to speak about it in 1929. And so from then, straight through to our day, all the way up to this event, which we see will be the slaying of the wicked in the church. That's Ezekiel 9. And of course, you can find more information, as it says, 3 testimonies, page 266. And of course, Ezekiel 9 is the specific prophecy that happens very soon. And then once this happens, of course, right in here, this is a event that we're going to show you here in a second, but this is the travel time for the saints going into the kingdom. And at the same time, inspiration tells us that there's a church purification going on. Of course, we'll show you further here in the timeline, but that's when the women sits on the 7 heads. And the churches federate, okay? They come together after this solemn church purification, the SDA church. And then we see further down the prophet and the beast come together. But we'll review back on this chart as we go further along the timeline. But I wanted to just bring this part here together because this is the very beginning stages of the final events. Okay, so the third big event to happen is the two groups begin their plans. On the first group, which is the 144,000, they begin their travel to the Holy Land. And of course, reference can be found for that in Timely Greetings, Volume 2, number 31, page 6 and 7. Again, you can pause this and read this at your leisure. And then again, you can find more information from 1TG, number 31, page 7 and 8. So these are very, very helpful references to explain that trip back to the Holy Land. And you can see that here in one of the verses, in the days of Moses, the Lord smote but one stream, the Red Sea, and one nation. But now the Lord promises to smite every stream, all seven, and causes his people from the four corners of the earth to reach their land without so much as getting their feet wet. So we can remember the Moses Exodus. Well, that's going to be repeated when the 144,000, after the church purification comes, begins their trip back to the Holy Land. These seas, these rivers, these lands, these streams, whatever water body is there will be divided and opened up so that the people can travel straight to his Holy Land. Beautiful, beautiful foretelling of something the world's going to be amazed at. But we have to remember that the message tells us, just as the type where Jacob was on his way home, the 144,000 will receive the similar antitype. And what was that? It was Jacob's mental anguish and trouble as he headed towards the kingdom. And we know in the type it was from Esau. Now keep in mind, Esau never laid hands on Jacob. And so too it will be with the 144,000. Anybody that comes to you and teaches that 144,000 is going to be thrown into prison, or they're going to have hands laid on them on their way to the kingdom or prior to the kingdom, is false teaching. We have to understand that once the church purification comes, they head towards the Holy Land, but there's going to be something that's going to make the road rocky. And that's going to be some type of mental anguish. The rod message doesn't tell us what specifically that is. But as you can read here in Shepherd's Rod, track, page 36, they will gain the victory, and they will reach the land of promise, and they will be happy of their long and troubled journey. So this is the great thing to look forward to. We're going back to this here because I want to emphasize again, this is the church purification, and then right in here is the time where the saints are traveling back to the kingdom. But let's keep in mind, remember we said two groups start their plans. Now, while that is happening, another group begins their plans, and that is the Sunday Christian community. They start to form their alliances, the Church Federation. Now, let's stop there for a minute and ask, well, why is it that at this time the church federates? Well, keep in mind now that the Sunday-keeping leaders, we're talking about all the big guys, Charles Stanley, Hal Lindsey, Jonathan Cahn, Mike Kessler. The list goes on and on of the Sunday-keeping pastors and leaders have taught for decades that Israel, the unbelieving Jews there today, fulfilled the 1948 prophecy. But we present truth believers do not abide by that. We say, no, that's false. There's someone else, and that's called the Rothschild Zionist movement, that has caused that gathering in 1948. And so the Sunday keepers have embellished this gathering to say that many of the prophecies that speak about the real gathering spoke about the 1948 false gathering. And they go further and say that all those prophecies where the Lord will protect Israel, and the people are going to be faced against people that are going to come up against Israel, and the Lord's going to defend them. Well, what's going to happen when they see in this gigantic war that Israel's going to take the brunt of the demolishment of the war? What's going to happen to these false teachers? They're going to be ashamed. Their mouth's going to be wide open like, what? What is happening here? We've told our flock all the protection that was supposed to happen, and yet they see the state of Israel demolished to a great degree because of the war. This is going to cause the great church federation to come together, figure this out, plead before the Lord. They're going to say, Lord, what happened? And it's going to cause religion to become the main focus. And of course, we know Revelation 17:9 speaks about the 7 heads, just like we showed in that timeline chart, coming together, and the woman sitting on them. Of course, we also find in that reference, the Great Controversy, page 588, where there's a reach out to Rome to get together and federate. Let's get together, figure this thing out. So there's going to be a great coming together of the Sunday churches, while on the other hand, the 144,000 are going back to the kingdom. So you can see 2 groups formulating their plans at the same time. Brethren, this is going to be a fascinating situation around the world. Here we have another great quote, and that's found on track 12, page 54. You can read that at your leisure, but that gives us more clarity on these double dynamic events happening at the same time. Okay, so when we know that the 144,000 are going back to the kingdom, the message has showed us that according to Ezekiel 47, the 12-tribe land will be reallocated. Now, if you look over on your left, you'll see how it was in the days of the olden time, ancient Israel. This is the different borders that each area had. Well, you can see, according to the future, that the land will be divided up in more of a horizontal division. And of course, the references can be found in Ezekiel 45, Ezekiel 48, 45, in all these different areas here. You can copy these down and read about this formulation of new territory. And of course, you find this right in the middle here of the center. And this is where the great loud cry of the final 3rd angel's message with that 4th angel that joins is going to emanate from. Okay? The whole world's message, loud cry headquarters, is going to be centered right here in the Holy Land. Now, in the map we just showed you, this is the specific Bible reference that speaks about this coming together to build up the land. Of course, that's found in Zechariah 1, verse 20 to 21. This is about the carpenters, and this is a great study that the Rod Message brings us. And so we highly suggest that you read this whole TG. Now, we've given you section of it here that pertains to our timeline, but when you get a chance, if you can read the whole TG, it's beautiful about these events to happen. Okay, so that concludes our part 1. We wanted to bring these events that happen up to this point, so as not to overwhelm you with too much information on our first part, because we're going to have to go through a lot of other things as well to make the rest of the timeline fit. But we hope you've been blessed, and we look forward to coming again real soon to bring you part 2. Until then, may God continue to guide you into all truth, and hold on to the seatbelts, brethren, because we are entering into these final events. The rapid ones are about to happen, and this is the purpose of this video, to show you a clear conception of those events. Until next time, God bless.